We will speak in English because we have guests from abroad. We have Guerin, which is coming from Paris, and we have Robbins, who's coming from London. And then we have Ragnhild Bjørnebekk, which is coming from Oslo and which is known for Norwegian audience. Because what we are going to discuss is, in my opinion, one of the most important issues in our time. And we're talking about the number of people who are living in poverty in the world, and that we have an increasing number of people actually facing this issue in Norway. And Norway is considered now as the happiest country in the world, and it's among the richest countries in the world. And this issue is very hidden in our society.
We have a society that's called the consensus welfare democracy, which is the Nordic democracies is typical for that. If people don't have a job, they get some money to survive, which also is different from, not different from other countries, but they get more money. But this kind of welfare society, which I think almost all Norwegians agree in, is put into some kind of pressure now. And it's several reasons for it, but almost all the political parties agree that we should develop the welfare society, but actually they think we should do it in different ways. And some of the ways actually make bigger differences. And we know that bigger differences have consequences. If the differences is very big, it has consequences for crime. If you are able to make pictures that hit people, so they get a turning point to see life, society and person in another way. And especially if it's if you get ethical reflection and empathy, it's a very effective way to change. I've been using with existentialistic art therapy with youngsters out of control, and I think that's the most important way to change them, because we don't have time to learn them. It takes years. But if you have this existentialistic meeting, that they see themselves and they see the society and they see the people they hurt in another way, they may change in 2 days.
In Norwegian it's called Politihøyskolen, and when Politihøyskolen is alive, it paints. And it paints in front of the parliament, and it's for random people passing by to attend to this, and they're handed out a flyer. And just today we actually didn't have the flyers, but normally I have the flyers, and I inform as a pig, or the pig inform about the issue, and then you actually get in touch with people's feelings and responses, and they want to attend. And this is a way of making it visible, because there's many who, because the hiding and the shame of facing poverty in Norway makes it very tricky, because it's extremely stigmatizing to deal with it. So if you want to survive socially, you want to show it, and I mean, this artwork shows that people react.
I'm a great admirer of the Norwegian social welfare system. I'm a novice, but I have a few observations which I think Marte is tapping into. And one of them is this growth of people on low income that was very stable at 8% for many, many years. But in the last few years it went from 9%, then to 10%, then to 11%. So it's creeping up. And I think what's interesting is this artwork is about the animal farm symbolism. And the animal farm story is about, it was written by George Orwell talking about Stalinist communism. And it was talking about very noble socialist experiments where you start out where all animals are created equal and you have this great society, everything is working. Eventually what happens is the rule is changed from all animals are created equal to all animals are created equal, but some animals are more equal than others. So I think what Marte is doing is trying to use this as a metaphor to raise consciousness about this growth of the people in low income in Norway as something which culturally, can we talk about it? How can we find a space to discuss it? Are there issues like shame to do with accepting gifts of money if you're on low income? What is it that culturally enables or disables talking about the growth of this number, the rising inequality? So the richest people in Norway have an amazing amount of financial assets at their discretion. It's one of the highest levels of wealth inequality in the world. There's also, but this is obviously smoothed out via the fact that the state owns many industries, including oil, which is able to smooth out so there is equality that is percolated throughout the system. And the other thing I think is the very high cost of living here, which obviously it's one of the highest cost of living in the world. So you have this system that smooths out market inequality via reinvesting state industries into creating this more egalitarian system. You have people in the middle income and maybe upper income which have access to job flexibility, they can move jobs, they can reskill, they get access to education. But I think what Marte is pointing out is that the people in the lower income, which is growing, are people who are often people with immigrant backgrounds, they're single parents, they're people with long-term health disabilities and addictions. So what is it about that low income group? Why are they hidden? Why are they, what is it about them that's invisible? And then how do you make visible the particular struggles that they're going through? And so to address this growing problem. And I think what I find positive in Marte's work is that she's an optimist. She thinks that we can do something about this, because if any country can do something about it, it's Norway, because of this amazing success. Work like Marte's can raise this issue to the general public and get people talking about it. So that's why I'm so keen also to hear what you in the audience think about this, and what your take on it is, and what you see as potential solutions to the issue.
To me, this art and the work and the project that she's engaged in is about what we can do together as opposed to what single people can do. And I think that for me, art, in this sense that Marte is using it, is all about community. It's all about dialogue. It's all about engagement with other people. It's not about being in a studio and working on one's own. I think there is a place for that, and I think that is important to be doing as well, but it is not about making representations of, or speaking on behalf of, or having ideas about social issues. I'm not a sociologist, so I can't really speak to those issues, but what Marte's doing is a form of co-created art, and that for me is the key, which as it was in the post-revolutionary Soviet Union. So how can art come in and create solutions within these worlds, within the world that we've been hearing about here in Norway? And I will admit I am no Norway expert. It creates a space in which people can come together. And that in itself is always the first step, because what happens is people who may not speak the same language, may be of different generations, maybe from completely different cultures, so on the outside have absolutely nothing in common, can come together in the space of making art together, and they create a community. Although it sounds, well, one of the things that we were talking about this afternoon was this idea of, it's not just that the artwork gets made and everyone has this therapeutic community project that they do together, but it then can feed into an economy. So that, for example, Marte sold, what's really important is Marte sold her painting, the work that she did with the children in South Africa, and that money then goes back to the community. So it has an economic benefit, and that for me is always very important. But it also has the benefit of coming to the attention of policymakers, so it has a social advocacy aspect to it, and you know, ideally that will come through educative processes that go together with come after the artistic project. The form, of course, that is most coveted for this work is the digital platforms. Because once it becomes digital, it has a public access that people, for example, in Norway then get to speak to people in Africa who can speak to people in Brazil. And when I say speak to, it's a creating community beyond the community. So it has no limits of the dialogues that can be opened up. And it's for those reasons that I think what Marte is doing is, you know, it's not only so important, but with the right, you know, if we can all come together and push it in the right direction, give it the right energy, and move it in potentially very productive ways, it has no bounds in terms of what it can do. And I'll just close by saying, I get this sense, and this is just intuition, it's not something that I've researched, but as I watch globalization gather in force, it's becoming almost impossible to make change at the top. And so I think that we, as artists and as academic researchers and whatever it is that you do in the community, have a responsibility to create change at the bottom.
This sculpture is totally optimistic, it's totally, you know, almost naive. It's like thinking we can change the world. The world can become like a totally different world, because we haven't seen a world where people are really equal. We never saw this. So we must start to think new thoughts. We must be able to like free ourselves from what we already know and give space to new ideas. We have to face every single day. We wake up and we wake up in a system that is wrong. There's so many wrongs, and that's one thing. So it's like absurd. It's difficult to respect it. And the other part is that Donald Trump is now president in the United States, which of course is one of the parts of this. And then it's this, the fact that you are raised in Norway with the target of education. This is like every single kid in this country are are going through school with the target of educate itself, and you are told that this is the way to actually create a good life for yourself. You need to take this education because it will give you this good life, because you will have a higher income. When we hear so often that job is the solution for these rising numbers, without investigating these numbers, without investigating the diversity of the people within this system, and there's many people who are in this system because they have a reason to be there. They're sick is one of the values of this society that we absolutely need to protect. You can demolish people's homes to get parking lots, no problem. You can do whatever. It's always happening. Of course, it's an easier event than to solve the world's problems, but it's about will. It's about political will. I am absolutely sure that if the Norwegian welfare system was an enterprise, and this was, CEOs who had these consequences, it would be solved a long time ago. It's because we're dealing with people who are in a position where they don't have a voice and they're not heard. And this is a reflection of the global situation, because we have millions of people who are absolutely not heard. We have this group of people who are long-term disabled, which is not immigrants, which is also part of the poverty issue. And this is also a group that need to have the ability to act and have the space, the means to act, to get out of traumatic events, for example. It's absolutely necessary. And this is then I'm back to this, that we need to change this. We can't rehabilitate these people on the poverty line, because if you then are struggling with your everyday needs, it will be extremely difficult, and it will probably get worse. Your problems will increase. But anyway, it's like a very important thing for me is that I've always been afraid of ending up stigmatizing in itself, that I can end up being the stigmatizer. I don't want to be that. I really, it's the worst thing I know, is to stigmatize and to think that someone is better than others, and for me it's something to work for, is to decrease, our hierarchies and decrease our ideas about someone is more valuable than others.
Before you were talking about the poverty, you started to talk about the poverty trap and how people in this circumstance they're treading water and they can't move past that to get any traction to move forward in their life. So this particular project that my colleague had showed that, with just a little bit of the right kind of assistance, people can pull themselves out, and surprising and exciting things can happen.
Yes, and there we are at very much the political stuff here, because why are we not spending more money on this? Is of course because of the cost. So the idea is that if we can't spend more because we can't afford it. But if we did the opposite and we spent more, maybe on the long term we would spend less. And this is, about time to try. This is to try something new, because it's based on an idea that, there's something wrong, there's some suspiciousness about exploiting the system, or that people are lazy, they don't want to go to work. It doesn't make sense if we ask ourselves.
And for me, the goal is extremely important because it's got to be economic. It's got to have money involved in that. So for me, we need to take that step to selling. And Marte was saying this afternoon that she sees the process of selling as a part of the creativity. And maybe she'll tell us about the economics of the painting that was made by the South African children. Hang on. Because that is a part of the co-creation, and Joseph Beuys is not doing that, because there is no money for anyone involved in Joseph Beuys's work, and no money for anyone except Jackson Pollock in Jackson Pollock's, and the representing. So that is Pollock by definition is enlarging the gap, whereas we want to close it. So the goal is always financial, and it's empowering. So that the idea is, you do the work where you give the individual self-esteem, and you do the work where they articulate who they are and what they want, and their aspirations, and then, step by step by step, it leads to a place where they are able to collectively organise. And what would be the goal? The goal would be that they have a voice have a voice in Parliament. I mean, I know it's way down the line, but that would be, you want goals, that's the goal.
This painting is not for sale for a private person. This is important, and that's to make the buyer part of creating art. It's because this is for sale for people with power, people with this and now I talk like the practical power. I met the Prime Minister 2 weeks ago in a theater in Oslo, and I introduced myself, and I told her that I'm creating a painting in front of the Parliament, and I challenge you to come out and paint with me. Because this is a way of connecting the grass with the... And it's also giving, for me it's like I'm giving her a chance. I'm really giving her a chance to give a practical, to show an act of respect to a group that everybody's concerned about. I can't guarantee that she will do it, but she's in my target zone.
She's in my way.
The goal for the society is, of course, that we have less costs of the welfare system. This would be an enormous achievement, because then we'll have much more people, you know, out. And then the next thing is, of course, to discuss the lowest salaries, but that's another night. Okay, so I want to thank you so much, Ragnhild, that you were here.
Oh, the same to you.
Thank
you so much.
I'm really grateful.
Yeah.
And to you, coming from Paris, I think this is incredible.
Well, I think what you're doing is incredible. So watch this space. Watch us grow.
Listen to this when she's saying this.
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. No,
yeah. It's terrific. We'll see what happens. And thank you everyone for coming as well and contributing.
Thank you guys for talking.
Thank you.